Card of the year? Is it safe to say UFC 295 is the main card of the year? And I'm not talking about the prelims and early prelims in this video, but man, I should. And let me know what you think below, but I'm going to give us a quick breakdown of the main card and why I believe it was the best card of the year. And we'll start off 5 fights, 5 finishes, and 5 fights that going into it are perfect on paper, but there's no real locks. I mean, the odds makers, what do you even say? I don't think any of these fights should have a clear favorite. There was no locks for the fans. And call me a casual, but you did not have a 5-leg parlay of the main card that hit. I don't care who you are. I mean, this was just beauty. And we're going to start off with the up-and-comer in the featherweight division, Diego Lopez, Peso Pluma. How can you doubt this guy? Pat Sabatini, absolute monster, coming into this fight. But Diego Lopez just quick to be explosive and getting a quick finish on him. We move on. The 2 veterans, Matt Frevola, Benoit Saint Denis. What a freaking fight. And Matt Frevola, up until a certain point, was very explosive. Showed a little bit of comfort in his game and a little too much confidence, if you ask me. What ended the fight for Matt Frevola is him circling out after an exchange where they ended up clinched. And he's circling out. His arms are down. He thinks he's getting away, but the distance control isn't in his favor. Saint Denis just throws a beautiful, beautiful left head kick. Just leaves Matt Frevola on the ground. And that's 2 fights, 2 first-round knockouts. What's next? How can we top this? Well, then we go into women's MMA. Something that a lot of people and people I was watching with were like, oh, great. Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. What's there to say about this? Well, a lot of potential. I mean, we have the powerhouse striker, and then we have the up-and-coming jiu-jitsu artist. What can happen? We have to kind of shit on Mackenzie Dern here. And I'm not going to put it all on her. I think it's poor coaching. I think there was a little bit of ego fighting. I think there's octagon immaturity, because Mackenzie Dern has no reason to face Jessica Andrade and try to go toe-to-toe striking. I mean, it's just the most absurd thing you could mention. Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And at the end of the first round, Jessica Andrade said, hey, you're trying to strike with me. I caught you. Your ass is on the canvas. What do you have for me in the second round? Mackenzie Dern comes out and she's not trying to grapple. She's not going for a takedown. She doesn't want to bring Andrade into her world. No, she said, hey, I could strike with you, Jessica Andrade. And that's just as immature as you could be as a fighter. There's no need for it. You're not a better striker than Jessica Andrade. You're going to get slept. And boy, did she. 4 knockdowns in a fight in women's MMA. You don't see that. So I'm disappointed with Mackenzie Dern's coaching, because I think it was clear direction of what you needed to do. The strategy was poor. And then I just feel like it was a lot of ego. It looked like Mackenzie Dern was trying to have a boxing match with Jessica Andrade, and it was the dumbest thing we could ever see. And it looked poor. So if you're going to face off with another fighter and you think you could keep up, man, I hope you're at the same skill level. We saw such a gap in between Mackenzie Dern striking and Jessica Andrade striking. I mean, Mackenzie Dern looked like one of those freaking inflatables outside of the car dealerships. She was just flailing her arms out, throwing random back fists. It was just embarrassing. And I got to give it to Jessica Andrade. She earned the victory. Just patience is a virtue, and she came out on top. And then we go to the co-main and main event. I cannot express how nerve-wracking these fights were. You really didn't know who was taking them, and I don't care who you are. You could support someone, and you could say this one and the favorite and this, that, or the other. Nobody knew who was winning these fights as they were going on. Start off, Sergei Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall. Short notice, Tom Aspinall, 6'5", absolute monster. Sergei Pavlovich, 6'2", just heavyweight monsters, really. There was so much on the line, and when you see these heavyweights, you know that one punch just really ends it all, and that's what ultimately happened. But when you have someone as dangerous as Sergei Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall, you really don't know what direction it's going to go. You have the young 6'5" speed Tom Aspinall coming off an injury. Then you have the dangerous, more experienced Sergei Pavlovich coming in with his precision and one-punch power. What's going to happen? Ultimately, guys, Tom Aspinall was able to find his distance. It looks like 2 tempo shots. Sergei Pavlovich is on the canvas, and I never thought I'd see him that way. Tom Aspinall, congratulations, interim heavyweight champion. And I'll be honest with you, John Jones will come back. John Jones will fight Stipe Miocic. John Jones does not want anything to do with Tom Aspinall. Mark my words. That fight never happens. John Jones doesn't want a piece of Tom Aspinall. Now the main event. Light heavyweight championship on the line. Jiri Prochazka, Alex Pereira. So much about this fight was so exciting. And when they stand looking at each other in the octagon, that was the craziest stare down I've ever seen. And Joe Rogan has mentioned Wanderlei Silva against Crow Cop, and that was like the craziest thing in the world. There was nothing coming in between the eyes of Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. And it was impressive. Even when Bruce Buffer was in Alex Pereira's face, he would not break to get his eyes away from Jiri Prochazka. And when Bruce Buffer comes to Jiri Prochazka, he finally breaks to do a samurai thing. But there was about 3 minutes where those guys did not leave from being locked into each other. And I tell you, if someone would have gotten in the way of those guys looking at each other, I mean, it would have been like a laser to the head. Like they couldn't pass by it. It was like a force field. The tension was incredible. It is the best stare down, in my opinion, of all time in the UFC. And then when we go into that fight, what we see is Jiri Prochazka doing what he does best. Feints, stance switches, unorthodox movement. And to a certain point, it was working. Alex Pereira, what he had going with him was his patience, which he's always very patient, and his great leg kicks. He proved in the first round that he has very strong leg kicks. He threw Jiri off several times. We rode that for about a round. Jiri Prochazka ultimately got Alex Pereira on the ground. I think he ultimately wins round 1. Round 2, all of a sudden, Jiri Prochazka looks really comfortable in the octagon. His feints are working. His switches are working. His head movement is working. It's just all coming together. And Jiri Prochazka is starting to look like he's owning Alex Pereira up to your knot. So Jiri Prochazka kind of wobbles Alex Pereira, gets him up into the cage, and of course, gets overzealous, overconfident. And at the end of the day, Alex Pereira has that nasty 1-2. He throws a short right hook, wakes up Jiri Prochazka. He kind of turns to the other side. He's met with Alex Pereira's other fist. Boom. He gets dropped. Jiri Prochazka quickly goes for a takedown while Alex Pereira's up against the cage. So he's up against the cage, sort of has a double leg going on. Ultimately, Jiri Prochazka kind of gets loose. He loses it for a second, and he pulls back and throws Alex Pereira over him in a top mount position. Mark Goddard says we've had enough, which, in his defense, at the time, it did look like Jiri Prochazka kind of just fell back, and it was over. His arms went limp. When you watch the replay, you see Jiri Prochazka kind of shoot up as soon as it's over. I'm here to shut that down. Jiri was out. I truly believe that if Mark Goddard lets that fight go for any longer, all we see is Alex Pereira land 1 or 2 more punches that ultimately end Jiri Prochazka and leave him cold. So I'm okay with the stoppage. And I'm okay with our new light heavyweight champion. And now my question is, what do you think? Was that an early stoppage? And what do you think of UFC 295? Because I think it was the card of the year. And I really don't think we get a better one in another 2 years. I mean, this is why we tune in. This is why we love fighting. It's because of cards like this. Let me know what you think. Be sure to follow.